Mr. Rohit Vyas, thank you so much for being with us on ITV Gold. I hope you are well this evening.
Thank you. Very excited, very tense, like
Yes, I can
everybody
only
else.
imagine. We have you here because there's a lot happening in the nation with elections this year, and we're just trying to figure out how to address it and how to analyze what's happening right now. So let's go right into it, Mr. Rohit Vyas. I would like to discuss the swing states that are at stake right now. This is
Okay.
almost 5:30 p.m. on the eastern coast, and we're looking at Alaska, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, whose votes we're still waiting on. What is your
Yeah.
prediction for these swing states?
I think, Vice President Biden, the former vice president, needs maybe one or just a couple of them. I think Nevada he's going to get, and Arizona I think he's going to get. That should be enough to give him the 270 electoral votes. Pennsylvania is going to go on. I believe it's going to be going on. The count will go on all the way till next Tuesday is the latest information that I have. And that's because one of the things that has happened in this election, each state has a different rule about absentee ballots or mail in ballots. Pennsylvania specifically says that its ballots will be counted once the election is closed, the polls have closed, the actual voting booths have closed, and it's only then that the counting will take place. Now, as you know, because of the pandemic this year, millions of people have already cast their ballots in advance. More than 100 million of them. I think the last count was 110 million of them. We've also had a historic general turnout for this election, probably the most historic in recent memory at least. 80% of the electorate has voted in this election, so it was a big election. Vice Biden right now stands at 253 electoral college votes and with 214 for Trump. So all Biden needs is 17 more electoral college votes to hit the magic number of 270 for the majority and therefore the presidency. I do expect all of this is going to drag on for a while because the Trump campaign has already filed lawsuits in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, asking for recounts when the counts themselves have not yet been completed. They've also asked for a court order to halt the counting in all three of these states right now, which is unprecedented. Meanwhile, his own party is saying, no, let the counts be completed and we'll see what happens after that. So that's the status right now. I do expect Biden, though, to emerge the victor.
Oh, wow. That's quite a prediction here that we have. How are you looking at both the contenders and how they're addressing everybody? President Donald Trump prematurely declared a victory very early this morning. Former Vice President Joe Biden still has just said that if we win enough votes, we'll, win the election. How have you looked at both of them?
Well, one is obviously overly optimistic and the other is reasonable and objective and cautious in the way he approaches it. The optimistic one is President Trump. I don't think, from the outset, I've said to you that President Trump, a lot of people don't understand him well, but he's not one to lose. He said it himself a couple of days ago when he was addressing the crowd, when he was addressing his own supporters in Arlington, Virginia. And he told them, he says, look, it's not an easy thing to lose. It's not an easy thing for me to lose. And so you can expect some of this pushback from him. Biden is a seasoned politician. He's been around for more than 40 years in the business of politics. So he knows to let things go their course, to allow the count to be completed. And that's what he's doing. So the approach is very much expected from both of them. I certainly expected Trump to rally his probably dejected supporters, or at least many of them would be dejected by now, even though this is by no means over. Things could change. I'm not expecting it, but they still could change.
Right. President Donald Trump has been continuously saying to stop counting the vote. His campaign has used selective stop vote counting across the nation. Is this constitutional, is my question. Can he actually stop the counting of votes in some of these states?
He can't actually stop it. I mean, as to its constitutionality, well, he can challenge it. He certainly can challenge it under the law. He can go out there, have his lawyers ask a court to halt the counting for whatever reason, and the court then decides if it's reasonable. If the court believes that something is going on, hanky panky or whatever, right, or fraud, I mean, manipulation of votes, for instance, the court will decide that. If they decide, they could order a halt. I think what the Trump campaign is trying to do is to gain access to the counting sites, especially in these crucial states, to
Right.
make sure, in their opinion, that the vote is fair, that the count is going legitimately. And so, yeah, they can if they wish to. Now, it's not something that's done normally in any election. This is indeed the first one where it's going to happen. Usually, what will happen is when there's a very tight race,
Right.
let's say a margin of a percent or below. In many states, the law provides for an automatic recount. In some states, they don't. The law does not provide that. In which case, somebody who feels they're the underdog can challenge that count, ask for a recount. In that case, usually it takes about 3 days. 3 days after the count, there's a sort of a break of 3 days to make sure everything has been counted. Then a recount would be ordered by a judge. And then it would take up to about 13 days in many cases before a recount can be completed.
Wow.
So these avenues are available if they wish to pursue them. His own party has been saying, let the counts just go ahead right now.
Right.
We'll see after that. Biden himself has said that. Let the counting be completed, then look at the numbers and decide what you want to. But yes, to answer your question directly, the Trump campaign does have the right to ask the court to intervene in such cases.
President Trump is also saying that he will take the matters up to the Supreme Court. Would Supreme Court interfere in something like this?
Supreme Court, there's been not much precedent in something like this. In fact, I'm not sure there's been a precedent at all. That's a very good question. Usually, if it's a tight race, let's say there's a tie. I think I explained this to you and your viewers the last time. If there's a tie, if there's 269 electoral college votes to 269 electoral college votes, at that point, the Constitution of the U.S. says you go to the U.S. House of Representatives. The U.S. House of Representatives will then vote based on the majority vote in each of those states. All right, that's how it works. But it will not be the electoral count. In other words, every state has a certain number of congressional districts. Those are the electors. All right. So let's say, take example, New Jersey. All right, where New Jersey has swept the polls. So there'll be one elector in a case like that, the tie, electoral college vote tie. There'll be one elector that'll be named, and that person will say, okay, we cast the vote for the Democrat because my state says the Democrat is the winner. That's how it goes on throughout all the states. And New York would be similar. Every state would choose an elector. That should break the tie. If that doesn't break the tie, there's usually a conference of the House of Representatives where they try to hammer out their differences and figure this out. This happened in the year 1876 when there was the Ohio governor and the New York governor faced a similar tie. And therefore it was all the way up to 3 days before inauguration, when in those days the House of Representatives sat down across the table, talked to each other. Finally, they gave it to the Republican. That was given to him. Right. And he was a Republican. The Democrat didn't get it, and that was it. That's how they settled that. 3 days before January 20th. But according to the Constitution, the new president must be sworn in on the 20th of January.
Yes, for sure. I want to go into a little bit more about these swing states that, we've already had some verdict on. I would like to discuss states Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Wisconsin and Michigan has been declared as a Biden victory so far in many networks. We're hoping that's the case. What do you think has made some of these states turn blue?
First of all, the appeal of Biden, I think he has appealed more to the white men in those states, in all of these states. In Arizona, which we see is going toward Biden, we think the problem has been that President Trump has criticized Senator, the senator who passed away, our senator, I forget it's slipping my mind right now. But he was being criticized overly, and he was the popular Arizona senator. And that probably has led to his decline in popularity in Arizona. Arizona is a red state. It was unexpected for it to turn blue. But because of that, it has gone blue. And so Arizona is a state that has gone to Biden, they say right now. Much of it has been the appeal to the white male, it seems, because in many other states, we're seeing a change in the demographics. The majority black population in some states has gone with Trump. So has the Latino population, most notably in Florida, which has gone to President Trump. He has appealed to them in those states. So it's very, very interesting that has happened.
Let's talk about the state of Georgia. They have had some historic turnout when it comes to the Democrats, and it's a
Mhm.
very close race. What are your predictions for Georgia? And what does that say? What does it say when you see such a huge turnout for Democrats in a state like Georgia?
Georgia, the suburban areas have gone more already Republican. They're looking now at the vote count totals for the Atlanta and suburban areas, that area, Atlanta, which is a huge, huge area. There's thousands of votes over there. Many of those are being counted by hand because obviously there are absentee ballots, there are mailed in ballots that have come in. And so that's what they're doing right now is counting those. And I think over there, it's changing demographics as well. There's a lot of new diverse populations that have moved into the Atlanta area, and so I think many of them tend to go with the Democrats versus the Republicans. I think that's the big change over there. That's been the same, incidentally, in Arizona as well. For Arizona, to get back to that for a moment, it's also been because a lot of people moved from California, which has had incredible housing prices in the LA and San Francisco area, et cetera. And a lot of people from the minority groups have not been able to sustain themselves in California and so have moved to the neighboring state of Arizona. The demographics there have changed. So a lot of changing demographics generally favor the Democrats, in my view.
What states do you think at this
I was
moment?
talking about John McCain, Senator John McCain, by the way.
There
The
you
name
go.
came back to me. It just slipped because so many names are going through my head right now, but so much happening here.
I can
So
only
that's what I was talking
imagine.
about, Arizona Senator John McCain. Yeah. Mhm.
What, according to you, does President Trump need right now to win?
Excuse me?
What, according to you, does President Trump need right now to win?
He basically needs to, well, he's got 214 votes. That means he needs 46. He needs at least 46 votes to be able to, or 56 votes to be able to get to the magic number of 270, which I think is out of reach basically right now for him. Unless they find a situation, unless he's going to court and the court actually finds that maybe 100,000 votes were counted in error, or the states themselves say, wait a minute, we made a mistake. We have too many votes coming in over here. A lot of that information or misinformation, by the way, has been spread on WhatsApp. And that's been going on right now. And a lot of people should be cautioned about that. That is exactly what the FBI has been warning everybody. Watch out for social media. During this time of the elections, there'll be a lot of misinformation going out there to get people riled and rattled. But right now, it does not look good for Trump, to answer your question again directly. It would basically be a miracle for him to be able to even achieve or pull off that 270. It's still possible. I don't think it's likely because the urban centers we're looking at now, where all these votes are being counted in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, North Carolina, Georgia, etc., Arizona, just doesn't look like it's going to go Trump's way. I could be entirely wrong, but I don't think I am at this point.
And then just talking about Pennsylvania, the state has been in news so much in the last couple of days. Do you see Pennsylvania making that decision for the final result, or do you think we may just know the final results even before Pennsylvania result is declared?
I think we're going to know it before Pennsylvania, although Pennsylvania has been the swing state, always has been in many of the elections, like Florida has been. Florida this time was decisive in favor of Donald Trump. If the other states go the other way, which again I don't think is likely, then Biden's good because Biden has many paths now to getting his 270. So I think it's very unlikely that Pennsylvania is even going to matter. It was a good bet. It was a good bet because both candidates spent a lot of time over there. President Trump's support, in fact, turned out on the day of the election, which is what he has been doing, personally campaigning. And all along in the run-up to the election, unlike the Democrats who said, go ahead and mail in your ballots, President Trump encouraged everybody to go out and vote in person. And so his base came out and voted in person by the thousands in many, many states, including New Jersey, including New York, the blue states. Even there, you saw the turnout was Republican and they were huge to come out.
Do you think mail-in ballots and the absentee ballots are play a huge role in this election, more than they've ever played in any other presidential election?
Yes, the short answer to that is yes, because it encouraged a lot of people to go ahead, vote in advance because of the pandemic, and because a lot of people had already apparently made up their minds. I think a majority of them who mailed their ballots were leaning Democratic anyway, or thinking Democratic. I believe very few Republicans actually sent in ballots in advance. Maybe some seniors did, okay, because they were afraid of the pandemic, even though President Trump said not to worry about it. So my guess is the majority of mailed-in ballots came from Democrats, Democratic supporters. Those who went in person to the polling booths, polling stations, in my mind, were Republicans. So it did make a huge difference, because don't forget, by last count, by I think yesterday morning, they were saying 110 million votes had already gone in, or a total of 110 mailed in and early votes. That's the correct way to put it, really. If not all mailed in. There were a lot of early voting figures in there as well, which means people went to booths that were open a couple of weeks in advance to cast their ballots. So there were a total of 110 million, which is a very, very exciting number.
Are there any states that have surprised you in this election?
Excuse me, the states that have surprised me?
Yes.
Arizona. Arizona was a surprise. I didn't really think it would go blue, or lean blue as it is right now, and looks like it's going to go to Biden. In fact, a couple of the pollsters have already called it for Biden, but many are holding off, and I would too. But I'm surprised by Arizona, definitely. But I think the reason was simple. They didn't want Senator McCain being undermined and abused the way they perceived it to be from the president. That is a very popular senator, a war hero in many eyes, and someone who is basically sacrosanct, a man who is highly held in very high esteem. Even when he ran for president, you saw there was a lot of respect for him from his opponent. And, I think that didn't sit well with Arizona. And so this is something they just wanted to sort of teach a lesson. You don't go saying something negative about our hometown hero, such as Senator John McCain.
Definitely. I just have a couple of questions left here for you. The first one has to be, what are you feeling about the Senate and the House race? Currently, Democrats are winning the House. They are, and the Republicans are winning the Senate. The call is very close between the two as well. How are you looking at it, this race?
Okay, that's a good question. I have the answer for that. It's not going to be easy for Biden if he is elected finally tonight, or by tomorrow, or by the end of the week, once it's declared. And if he is elected, I believe the Senate is going to remain with the Republicans. Right now it stands at 48 Republican and 46 Democrats. They need a majority of 51 in the House, in the Senate, to be in control. So if the Senate doesn't end up in a tie, because then in the case of a tie, the vice president, who would in this case be Kamala Harris, can cast the tiebreaker. I think the Senate is going to get the majority. If that happens, it's going to be very difficult for President Biden to get anything legislatively approved easily. It's not going to be easy. It wasn't easy for Donald Trump in the last few months when he asked the Senate to go ahead and make a deal with the Democrats, get the second stimulus package out. It didn't happen because Mitch McConnell resisted because of his own fellow Republicans. Mitch McConnell's back over there. So President Biden definitely is going to face stiff opposition if he tries to make any kind of legislative changes, introduce stuff, have the Democrats introduce anything in the House. The House, by the way, in the House, the Democrats have lost a few seats. In the last Congress, they had 232, I believe, 232, and they had control. They still retain control right now with 227, but the Republicans have 208. The Republicans have gained some seats, it seems, this time. So even the House, still in control of the Democrats, but it's an eroded control, I put it that way. So it's going to be a tough time. President Biden is going to have a pretty difficult time. So essentially, for the next 2 years, until there's a next senatorial race, it's going to be basically gridlock in Washington is what I see.
And finally, my last question to you has to be about the chaos we are expecting perhaps tonight and then going into tomorrow. There is news for riots, there is a news for looting, there are, police officers across the nation preparing for any kind of backlash. How are you looking at this? Do you think there would be protests or any kind of backlash tonight?
I don't think so. I think actually I'm optimistic on that score. I think first of all, law enforcement is pretty much in control of it. They've got their ear to the ground. They're ready. I think I mentioned to you the last time the National Guard are already on alert. A number of places are boarded up. New York City is an example. I believe it's the same in Chicago. Los Angeles is the same thing. I've spoken to some law enforcement officials both in the city and in Los Angeles. My law enforcement contacts, and in fact, a senior sheriff I know in LA told me that they're already over there. So I'm not expecting any kind of trouble. If there is trouble, it would begin with something like some isolated groups that try to go out there to stir trouble. But right now, everything is so transparent. The vote is so open. Neither side is trying to raise the rhetoric.
Right.
As long as that continues, I don't expect any kind of major trouble, and hopefully this can all be going off peacefully.
Well, thank you so much for your time here on ITV Gold. I truly appreciate it. We look forward to having you more.
Sure. Thank you.